Hello, this is Matthew from Catholics on Record, where we discuss the things of God for the glory of God. Okay, so today I want to discuss four different types of what I would call Eucharistic phenomena, and these are not in any particular order or of importance, but hopefully when I talk about them, you'll see that some of the saints that we have heard about and some ordinary people in your life may have gone through these. So let's get to it. First, Eucharistic phenomena is what I would call Eucharistic dependence. And so this can be broken down to either full or partial dependence. And with the full, it's not consuming anything else but the Eucharist and desiring nothing else but the Eucharist at all. With partial Eucharistic dependence, is only desiring nothing but the Eucharist, with other foods seeming to be inferior or necessary. So with different saints, like Blessed Alexandra Costa, other saints I can't think of it on top of my head, but I know of, and I'm sure you've read in the Eucharistic Miracles books. They lived on the Eucharist for numbers of years, even decades, 10, 20, 30 years plus. But some people that you may know have talked about partial dependence, where they desire nothing else but the Eucharist. They crave it, and they desire it so much that every other food that they have that is not the Eucharist seems inferior. Then there's another type of phenomena, something I've kind of noticed, and you may have noticed. It's I've heard from some people that when they consume the Eucharist, they feel a heartbeat next to their own heartbeat. It's like kind of in tandem, and the heartbeats kind of like sync together. They feel that their heart is not their heart anymore. So I didn't find an appropriate term out there, both medical or spiritual. So I called it, and I'm calling it, just coined a phrase, Eucharistic Paracorosis. So it's Eucharistic Paracorosis. So it's feeling the Eucharistic heartbeat of Jesus physically when sacramentally consuming the Eucharist. And this only happens when sacramentally consuming the Eucharist. It possibly could happen spiritually, but that's a different matter. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So there's that. Another type of Eucharistic phenomenon, this is one of my favorites to hear about, is what I call and what I can coin as transgustation. I didn't actually make up this term, it was another friend of mine that did. But transgustation is when at various times outside of sacramental reception of Holy Communion, the literal reception or tasting of the Eucharist occurs. So it's like Eucharist comes down from heaven, like the manna from heaven in the Old Testament, except this time it's the Eucharist. It comes to you and it's there for you. So with this, there's three types of transgustation. There's the kind that's the beatific distribution, is another term. This is specifically when an angel or saint brings Holy Communion to the person in need, and when they are unable to receive that at the present time. So look up the story on Saint Stanislaus Costa. I can't pronounce the last name. But look up his story. He was unable to be fed Eucharistic communion, and an angel brought it to him. So we could call that rightly beatific distribution. A second term that I came up with for this next part deals with specifically tasting the precious blood during spiritual communion. And what I would call, and you may recognize the medical Latin behind it, hemogustosis. So hemo means blood, gustosis means process of tasting, so hemogustosis. Hostiogustosis, which hostia means host, and though you don't recognize the other term for what I just said, hostiogustosis is specifically tasting the consecrated host during spiritual communion. And you'll see that sometimes goes in tandem with Eucharistic Paracorosis. So Eucharistic detection is the next one separate of the other three. So what is Eucharistic detection? We see in the life of St. John Paul II that he had a gift like this. So it's detecting Eucharistic presence, especially when it is either hidden or out of view of normal senses. So in the life of John Paul II, John Paul the Great, we see that he would walk on by a chapel that he couldn't tell was a chapel with his ordinary senses, but he would shake his finger and say, walk in the chapel and do adoration for hours. You would see that this would throw off his schedule. And I'm pretty sure other saints have experienced this. This is not just a one-time phenomenon. But there you go on those. So we have the 4 types of Eucharistic phenomena. Let me go over those again with a brief summary. So we have Eucharistic Dependence, Eucharistic Paracorosis, Transgustation, and Eucharistic Detection. And with Transgustation, you have the subparts of that being beatific distribution, hemogustosis, and hostiogustosis. And all these terms that you haven't heard about are terms that I have compiled using prefixes and suffixes of medical terminology that make the most sense. There's those. And I would like to make a note about things that deal with holy orders, phenomena with holy orders, although I can do a video on more of these. I'm sure this is not exclusive to just these 2, but I wanted to share about these. There's something I would coin as sacerdotal detection. So it's when you're around just lay people, and all of a sudden you seem to notice that the priest is nearby, but you don't see him, and then he walks into the room. That's the type of spiritual gift, I would say. So holy order detection. You're detecting somebody with holy orders, whether it's a deacon, priest, or bishop. And I would call that sacerdotal, since sacerdotal deals with the priesthood, and you're detecting that. So there's that one. And then there's something that is exclusive to priest, which I was told from one guy was holy amnesia, but I would like to call this confessional amnesia, where they simply forget your sins. And you see that you've heard and you hear that from priests that they just can't remember. And it's a grace from holy orders that they can't remember certain what's the word? They can't remember anything that it comes in the confessional. They just suddenly forget like that. So yeah, there's with the holy orders phenomenon, there's sacerdotal detection and confessional amnesia. Those are important gifts. Sacerdotal detection is from anybody, but the confessional amnesia is exclusive to priest. And this all goes with it, like in the general umbrella, detecting holy and sacred things. You might see some of this in the Bible, some of this outside the Bible, different stories of the saints. But we've all probably experienced different things like these, some of these, or all of these. I don't know what you've experienced. But if you've experienced any kind of like spiritual gifts, any kind of spiritual things, please share in the comments and the comment section. I'll leave the comment section open for this. I want to hear about your spiritual gift. We can all discuss it and see where we go with it. So thank you for tuning in. This has been another episode of Catholics on Record. I'm your host, Matthew. And remember to stay in that state of grace and keep your prayer life on point. Good night and God bless. Bye for now.